Hello Capricorn, welcome back to another reading. Today we are diving into something that honestly caught me completely off guard when the cards started showing up. This is one of those readings where the energy just hits differently. And I need to share this with you because what your enemy or competitor is going through right now is absolutely wild. I pulled cards specifically asking about the people who have been working against you, those who have tried to block your path, and Capricorn. The universe has some serious revelations here. Before we get into the cards themselves, I want to set the context. We are looking at 6 specific cards today that came through with such clear energy about what is happening behind the scenes in the life of someone who has opposed you. This is not about celebrating anyone's downfall, but rather understanding the natural consequences that unfold when people operate from a place of negativity or competition. The energy here is incredibly revealing about how karma works and how the universe balances things out. So I shuffled the deck with your energy in mind, Capricorn, asking specifically what your enemy or the person who has been trying to undermine you is currently experiencing. The cards that came through are so telling, and each one builds on the previous to paint this complete picture of their current situation. Let me walk you through what the universe wants you to know. The very first card that appeared in this reading is the 6 of Wands. And honestly, Capricorn, when I saw this card in the context of your enemy's situation, I had to pause for a moment. The 6 of Wands traditionally represents victory, recognition, public acknowledgement of success. So you might be thinking, wait, does this mean my enemy is winning? But here's where the reading gets really interesting, because this card is showing up in a very specific way. What I am picking up is that this person has been desperately trying to maintain an image of success. They are putting on this public face, showing the world that everything is great, that they are winning, that they have it all together. But Capricorn, the energy behind this card feels so forced, so manufactured. This is someone who is working overtime to convince everyone around them that they are on top, that they have beaten you or surpassed you in some way. The fascinating thing about the 6 of Wands appearing here is that it represents the facade they are maintaining. Think about how much energy it takes to constantly project an image that does not match your internal reality. This person is essentially living in performance mode every single day. They wake up and immediately start crafting the narrative they want others to see. Maybe they are posting on social media about their achievements. Maybe they are name-dropping in conversations. Maybe they are going out of their way to make sure mutual connections know how well they are doing. But underneath all of that, there is this desperation. The 6 of Wands in this position tells me that their need for external validation has become almost obsessive. They need people to see them as successful because without that external confirmation, they would have to face what is really going on internally. What makes this particularly relevant for you, Capricorn, is that this person has likely been comparing themselves to you specifically. Your steady climb, your authentic achievements, your real progress has been triggering something deep within them. So they have responded by trying to outshine you publicly, trying to make their wins look bigger. Their accomplishments seem more impressive. But here's the thing about manufactured victories versus authentic ones. The 6 of Wands, when it represents genuine success, has a stable, confident energy. When it represents what I am seeing here, there is this underlying shakiness to it. It is like watching someone balance on a house of cards, constantly adjusting, constantly worried that one wrong move will bring the whole thing crashing down. They are exhausted from keeping up appearances, drained from the constant effort to look victorious while internally feeling anything but secure. This card also suggests that they may have recently had some kind of public moment where they appeared to triumph. Maybe they got a promotion, maybe they closed a deal, maybe they received some kind of recognition. But even in that moment, instead of genuine joy, what they felt was relief. Relief that they could point to something tangible to prove they are winning. The victory feels hollow to them even if they would never admit it, because it was pursued for the wrong reasons. It was about beating you rather than fulfilling their own authentic path. Can you see how draining that is? How unsustainable? Now we move to the second card, and Capricorn, this is where things get really intense. The 4 of Swords appeared. And when I tell you that the energy of this card in relation to your enemy's situation is absolutely significant, I mean it. The 4 of Swords represents forced rest, exhaustion, burnout, needing to retreat and recover. This card is showing me that beneath that 6 of Wands facade we just talked about, this person is absolutely depleted. They are running on empty. All that energy they have been pouring into maintaining their image, into competing with you, into trying to undermine your success has literally worn them down to nothing. What I am picking up with the Four of Swords is that this person is experiencing some kind of breakdown, whether that is physical, mental, emotional, or all three. The universe is essentially forcing them into a timeout. Their body might be giving them signals that cannot be ignored anymore. Maybe they are dealing with health issues that have cropped up from stress. Maybe they are having trouble sleeping because their mind will not stop racing. Maybe they have reached a point where they simply cannot keep going at the pace they have been maintaining. The Four of Swords often appears when someone has pushed themselves beyond their limits, and the universe just says enough. You need to stop now. Think about what happens when you run a marathon without training, without pacing yourself, without listening to your body. Eventually, you hit the wall. You physically cannot continue. That is what is happening to your enemy right now. They have been sprinting when they should have been on a sustainable pace, and now they are facing the consequences. The interesting thing about the Four of Swords in this reading is that it represents an involuntary pause. This is not them choosing to take a break or practice self-care. This is them being forced to step back because they literally have no other choice. Their system is shutting down, demanding rest and recovery. For you, Capricorn, this is really important to understand because while they have been focusing all their energy on competing with you, you have likely been building something sustainable. You understand the value of pacing yourself, of building foundations that last. The contrast here is striking. They are in forced retreat while you continue to move forward steadily. The Four of Swords is also telling me that during this period of forced rest, this person is going to have to confront some uncomfortable truths about themselves. When you are constantly in motion, constantly performing, constantly competing, you can avoid looking at deeper issues. But when the Four of Swords energy forces you to be still, all those things you have been running from catch up with you. They are going to have quiet moments where they have to ask themselves why they have been so focused on you, why your success bothers them so much, what void they are trying to fill with external validation. This is not a comfortable process for them. The Four of Swords can bring up a lot of anxiety for people who are not used to stillness, who have been using busyness and competition as a way to avoid inner work. So right now, your enemy is not just physically exhausted. They are also being confronted with the emptiness of the path they have been on. That Six of Wands victory they were so desperate to project. In the stillness of the Four of Swords, it feels meaningless to them. They are questioning everything, feeling lost, wondering why they feel so unfulfilled despite appearing successful on the outside. The third card that came through is a star. In Capricorn, this is where the reading takes a really interesting turn. The star is about hope, healing, renewal, finding your way back to yourself. In the context of your enemy's journey, this card is showing me that after the forced rest and confrontation of the Four of Swords, there is actually an opportunity for them to heal and redirect. But here's the crucial thing I am picking up. The star represents a potential, not a guarantee. This is a crossroads moment for them. They have the opportunity to look at their life honestly, to recognize that the competitive, comparison-driven path they have been on is not serving them, to choose healing and authenticity over ego and performance. However, the star requires humility. It requires being willing to admit that you have been on the wrong path, that your priorities were misaligned, that your focus on external validation and competing with others was actually destroying you from the inside out. Not everyone is ready to do that work. Some people reach this crossroads, and instead of choosing the healing path that the star offers, they double down on their old patterns once they have rested enough to continue. What I am sensing is that your enemy is being presented with this beautiful opportunity for transformation. The universe is literally handing them a chance to release the negativity, to find their own authentic path, to stop measuring their worth against your achievements. The star energy is gentle but powerful. It is saying to them, you do not have to keep living this way. You can choose hope over resentment. You can choose your own authentic journey. Over constantly comparing yourself to others, you can find what truly fulfills you instead of chasing victories that feel empty. But the star also requires faith in yourself. Faith that you are enough without needing to be better than someone else. It requires trusting that your path has value, even if it looks different from what others are achieving. This is challenging for someone who has built their entire identity around competition and comparison. What this means for you, Capricorn, is that there is a possibility your enemy might actually shift their energy. They might realize that focusing on you has been a waste of their time and energy. They might choose to redirect their focus inward to heal, to find their own path. If that happens, you will likely notice a shift in the energy around you. The subtle or overt competition will fade. Now, let me pull the fourth card, because this is where we really see what direction things are heading. The Knight of Swords came through, and Capricorn, the energy of this card in this position is quite revealing. The Knight of Swords represents charging forward, aggressive action, cutting through with force, sometimes reckless pursuit. What this is telling me is that your enemy is choosing action over reflection, instead of taking the star's offered path of healing and redirection. They are gearing up to fight harder. The Knight of Swords suggests they are planning some kind of aggressive move, some way to reassert themselves, to prove they are still in the game. This card has a very forceful energy to it. The Knight of Swords does not pause to consider consequences, does not think strategically about sustainability. This is pure forward momentum fueled by urgency or desperation. What I am picking up is that after their period of forced rest, after glimpsing the possibility of a different path, your enemy is instead choosing to come back with even more intensity. They might be planning to make a bold move in their career, to launch something publicly, to do something that gets attention. The Knight of Swords energy is all about making an impact, about being seen, about proving something. But here's what is important to understand about the Knight of Swords in this context. This card often represents action without wisdom, movement without true direction. It is reactionary rather than strategic. What this tells me is that whatever your enemy is planning or doing, it is coming from that same place of ego and competition rather than from authentic purpose. They have learned nothing from their burnout, nothing from their forced rest. Instead of using that time to reassess and redirect, they are doubling down on the behaviors that depleted them in the first place. The Knight of Swords can be brilliant when it represents cutting through illusions to get to truth, or taking decisive action from a place of clarity. But in this reading, it represents someone who is running from their own insights, who saw the truth about themselves during their Four of Swords moment, and decided it was too uncomfortable to face. So they are charging forward again, but this time with even more to prove. They need to show themselves and everyone else that the burnout was just a temporary setback, that they are still in control, still winning, still ahead. The problem is that the Knight of Swords energy is not sustainable either. It is actually even more depleting than what they were doing before, because now they are running on fumes, while pretending to be at full strength. For you, Capricorn, this means you might notice a new wave of competitive energy coming from this person. The fifth card is absolutely crucial because it shows us where this Knight of Swords energy is leading them. The Eight of Pentacles appeared, and at first glance you might think this is a positive card, because the Eight of Pentacles traditionally represents dedication, craftsmanship, skill development, focused work. But in the context of everything we have seen so far, this card is showing me something quite different. What I am picking up is that your enemy is about to throw themselves into work with obsessive intensity. The Eight of Pentacles is about perfecting your craft, but in this case, it represents someone who is using work as a way to avoid dealing with their deeper issues. This is workaholism disguised as dedication. This is someone who will stay up all night working on projects, who will fill every moment with tasks and productivity, who will measure their worth entirely by their output. The Eight of Pentacles in this position suggests that they are trying to work their way out of their emotional and spiritual crisis. They believe that if they just achieve enough, produce enough, perfect their skills enough, they will finally feel the validation and worth they are desperately seeking. But here is the tragedy of this approach. The Eight of Pentacles work ethic without inner alignment leads to beautiful results that feel meaningless to the person creating them. They will accomplish impressive things, master their craft, produce work that others admire, but none of it will fill the void inside them, because the void is not about lack of achievement. It is about lack of authentic connection to self. What this means practically is that your enemy is entering a phase of intense productivity. They might actually create some remarkable work during this time. They might launch successful projects, gain recognition, demonstrate undeniable skill. But the energy behind it is hollow. They are building a more sophisticated prison for themselves, one decorated with achievements and accolades, but still fundamentally lacking in genuine fulfillment. The Eight of Pentacles is showing me that They will become even more isolated in their pursuit of perfection. They will sacrifice relationships, health, joy, all in service of this need to prove themselves through their work. They might look at your steady progress, Capricorn, and think they need to outwork you, outproduce you, outperfect you. But what they do not realize is that you are building something sustainable, while they are heading toward another inevitable crash. The interesting thing about the Eight of Pentacles appearing here is that it also suggests they have real talent and capability. The tragedy is not that they lack skill or potential. The tragedy is that all of that capability is being channeled into an ultimately unfulfilling pursuit because the motivation is external validation, rather than internal satisfaction. They could be using the Eight of Pentacles energy to genuinely master something meaningful to them, to create work that comes from an authentic place, but instead, they are using it as another form of armor, another way to avoid the vulnerable work of healing and self-discovery that the star was offering them. Now we arrive at the sixth and final card in Capricorn. This one really brings everything full circle. The Six of Swords appeared, and the energy of this card in this position is both hopeful and bittersweet. The Six of Swords represents transition, moving away from troubled waters toward calmer shores, leaving behind what no longer serves you. In the context of your enemy's journey, this card is showing me that eventually, inevitably, they will have to make a transition. The path they are on is not sustainable, and the Six of Swords suggests that at some point, they will be forced to move on from this chapter of their life. What I am picking up is that this transition will not be by choice initially. The Six of Swords often represents necessary departures, situations where you have to leave something behind. Because staying is no longer viable, this could manifest in many ways. They might have to leave a job or position because the stress becomes too much. They might have to physically relocate for reasons beyond their control. They might experience a significant life change that forces them to reassess everything. The Six of Swords is about moving towards something better. But the journey itself can be difficult because it requires leaving the familiar behind, even when the familiar was unhealthy. The beautiful thing about the Six of Swords is that it does point toward eventual peace and healing. The troubled waters represent the emotional turmoil, the constant competition, the exhausting pursuit of validation. The calmer shores represent a place where they might finally find some equilibrium, some relief from the constant striving. But here's what is important to understand. The Six of Swords journey is one they have to take alone. This is about their personal evolution, their own path forward. What this means for you, Capricorn, is that ultimately, this person will move out of your orbit. Whether that is literally or energetically, the connection and competition will dissolve. They will be forced by circumstances to focus on their own journey, rather than being fixated on yours. The Six of Swords is also telling me that in this transition, they will finally start to gain some perspective. When you are in the middle of troubled waters, everything feels urgent and overwhelming. But as you move toward calmer shores, you start to see things more clearly. They will eventually look back on this period of their life and hopefully recognize how much energy they wasted on competition and comparison. They might even feel embarrassed about how focused they were on you, how much mental space you occupied, how their obsession with undermining you actually undermined their own peace and progress. The Six of Swords represents the beginning of wisdom that comes from experience. The understanding you gain when you finally leave a toxic situation or pattern behind.